Welcome to the Million Vegan Grandmothers podcast. Today I meet with Louise Jorgensen, the co-founder of Toronto Cow Save and a photojournalist documenting animal suffering in the food system. Thank you, Louise, so much for being here today.
Thank you, Anne, for having me. It's a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you. It is so inspiring, actually, what you are doing. You are like turning this grief we all have when it comes to the suffering of animals into action and actually doing something so profound that you are doing. And you also co-founded the Toronto Cow Save. Please, can you please start to tell me a little bit more about how this was the Toronto Cow Save was founded and how what you have witnessed as an activist and how you work today, please.
Actually, bearing witness at the Toronto Cow Slaughterhouse began in my teens. So I started, which was many, many years ago, by the way. And I started an animal rights group in high school, and we actually went into the slaughterhouse and were allowed to bear witness to what was going on in there. And that event changed everything for me. I didn't know what to expect when we went in there, and it was horrible beyond belief. And I still remember bearing witness to a cow being stunned, and the cow looked right into my eyes, and he actually tried to leap out of the stunning box towards me. And that image has been ingrained in my mind and my heart since that day back, when I was 16 years old. Um, And then I met Anita Crines in 2011. I was at a PETA slaughter, or I'm sorry, a PETA protest at the pig slaughterhouse downtown Toronto um, with my son. And I met Anita there, who lived close to the slaughterhouse and wanted to organize some regular protests there. So, of course, I was very keen to join. And so I attended the inaugural Toronto Pig Save Vigil, and I continued to come and organize, from that day on. Um, After a little while, I remembered about the slaughterhouse in Toronto, also the north end of Toronto, where cows were being slaughtered and where I had that experience as a teen. And I mentioned it to this another organizer. His name was Paul, and he said, "Let's start something there." So we started the Toronto Cow Save vigils at the slaughterhouse, and I've been organizing them ever since. And it's almost like it's been my call in life because I started out that way as a teen. And then I kind of got off track for many years, being a mother and just life in general. And then somehow I ended up back there again. So it was very strange and wonderful and sad. But I do believe that it has been my calling in life to help those cows. It's like a full circle that I've come.
Wow. What have you witnessed as an activist? Would you like to tell me a little bit what you have seen when you have bearing witness and to the vigils and so on?
Well, we see transport trucks filled with cows coming to the slaughterhouse. It's very difficult to to bear witness to because there's nothing that we can really do to help these particular cows. It's too late for them. But the idea is that, we get new people coming out all the time, and then bearing witness to these cows, these animals going to slaughter for people who aren't yet vegan or vegetarian. It puts them on the path towards becoming vegan. And people who are already vegan, might not be activists yet, but when they bear witness to these animals, it ignites a spark in their soul to get active and start helping these animals. So bearing witness, although we're not able to usually save the animals that we're bearing witness to, although we do sometimes with smaller animals like chickens and lambs, and um, we are essentially saving the ones of the future. So if we can stop this industry from happening altogether, we're going to stop the slaughter of all animals in the future, and that is the goal.
Exactly. What is the usual reaction when new people come to the vigils from your experience?
Usually the first time there's a lot of very strong emotions, and that's why people, they're afraid to come because they're afraid of feeling these emotions. So, there's the initial extreme sadness. Most people cry the first time they bear witness. And then there's anger. And then there's a feeling of desperation because we can't save these animals. All we can do is watch them go in. It's very, very difficult. But after you've done this a few times, you can turn this energy into a spark to help the animals, turn it into determination to help them. So, but I think you initially need to feel those strong emotional feelings and process them, and then turn it into determination to stop this from happening.
Exactly. I really think so too. And what is, from your experience, how is the best way to turn this sadness, anger, frustration? It's almost like going mad standing there seeing these innocent animals into into love and action. I mean, what is, from your experience, what is the best way to sort of find those kind of feelings, to get the spark, to get the power, feel powerful instead of powerless, so to speak?
I think it's a way of keeping sane, actually, because we can't just have those negative feelings, or it's not going to change anything. So what we have to decide is what is going to help the animals. Is it being angry, standing crying, yelling at the workers? I mean, that might feel good for us for a moment, but in the long run, it's not helping the animals. It's only making things worse, actually. So I find to, as hard as it is, sometimes we have to treat people with respect and approach them in a way that's coming from compassion. The compassion that we have for the animals, we also have to feel towards these people that don't know, like they know what's happening to the animals, but they don't really know what they're doing. They still have that wall up, that veil that disconnects them from what they're really doing. And it's very sad, that humanity has come to this situation where we have built these walls and not feeling, our normal compassionate feelings that we're meant to feel. So we can have a little bit of compassion for them as well. And I find that when we do that, and when I talk to the workers as as person to person rather than activist to slaughterhouse worker, they're much more open to speaking with us. And actually, one slaughterhouse worker, he's actually the manager of the warehouse in the slaughterhouse. He actually went completely plant-based because of my conversation with him. So we were having a conversation one day. We would chat sometimes while I was there. And then one day he told me that he was very upset because his dog had died. And I said, "Oh, I totally understand that. I have dogs and my dogs are everything to me. And, when one passes away, it rips my heart out." He said, "Oh, I know. I feel the same way. I can barely function." And so I let him, go on with these feelings for a while and describe how he was feeling. And I didn't want to interrupt him too much, but I said, "But your dog, your beloved dog, the one, with has a soul and feelings." I said, "The cows here are no different." And he's saying, "Yes, I know, I know, I know." And the next time I saw him, he called me over and said, "Oh, I just want to tell you, I'm cutting meat out of my diet." I said, "Oh, that's amazing." And then slowly, gradually, he cut everything out. And then he said, "The only thing I came back another time, and he said, the only thing I have left is yogurt." He goes, "I really, really love yogurt." And I said, "Well, there is amazing plant-based yogurt. You just haven't found the right one." So the next time I came, I brought some of the my favorite yogurts to him, and he was really grateful. And he tried them, and he goes, "I want to pay you for them." And I said, "No, no, no. This is my gift to you." And he tried them, and he said they were amazing. So he did eventually cut everything out.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. That is amazing. I remember when I saw your pictures, your wonderful pictures, or actually very sad but amazing pictures on Instagram. It was dairy cows, and they were just, you do this so well, how you document these animals. And it was several years ago, and I still remember this white cow looking at me. It was a dairy cow, and white and black, but mostly white. And your pictures are amazing. And would you like to tell me a little bit about your photojournalism as well?
Yes, I'd love to. I've been a photographer, a hobby photographer, most of my life. But I didn't really have a focus on anything. Though I did some wildlife and that sort of thing. But when we started bearing witness to the animals at slaughter, I thought I'm going to use my photography to help them. So what I do is I try to capture the individuality of the I don't want to say the victim, but the subject in the photo. Um, because the problem is with a lot of people and consumers, when they think of a cow, they think of cattle. They think of like this big group of things in a field, like they don't see them as the individuals that they are. They don't get a chance to look into the eyes of these animals and see the soul and the person that they are, and they're just like us. Each one is completely different. So I try to capture the individuals so that people will see them as that, and it does help. And I try to make captions that, like, usually the photos will speak for themselves, but I try to speak for the animals, as if the animal is speaking through me. So that helps people to connect with individual animals and think about, who they're eating. It's not beef, it's not bacon, it's not pork, it's an individual animal, a person, and that really helps people to connect with them.
Yeah, that's so powerful. That's so powerful. I know that you have also been working a lot against dairy. And how has it been for you working, to highlight what's going on in the dairy industry during these years?
Um, well, it's been good and bad. I mean, I as well as being at the slaughterhouse, I also go to animal auctions, farm auctions, and places like that. So I do see a lot of dairy cows and calves there as well. Um, when we're at the slaughterhouse, we tend to see transport trucks filled with cows from the dairy industry coming. On the good side is that we're seeing so many more plant-based milks being sold. Like, for instance, where I live, when I first moved here, the only non-dairy milk they had there were cartons of rice milk, and I didn't like rice milk. So, but now the plant-based milk section is larger than the cow's milk section, which is just unbelievable. It's so beautiful to see. So we are, in the last 10 years, we're seeing a huge, huge difference in the consumption of plant-based milks. And I think partially, um, what's helped that is normalizing it too. So when, like, people don't want to do things they don't consider to be, normal. So when plant milks become normalized, then they will drink the plant milks and they see, and they taste them and realize like they're delicious and they're not hurting any cows. And um, so yeah, there has been a huge amount of progress there, but we're seeing like transport trucks filled with cows from the dairy industry coming to the slaughterhouse, and that is, I believe, partially because the dairy industry is collapsing. So, so they're very young. They're probably only a few years old. They've only been, milked for a few years, and probably had several babies already. But the way I look at it is those cows are going to end up at the slaughterhouse anyways. They're just probably coming a bit earlier than they normally would. But yeah, so it's sad to see this, with the cows, but it's wonderful to see the plant-based milks selling so well.
Yeah, really. That is going in the right direction, hopefully,
Yes.
especially in the
Yeah,
long run now.
exactly.
Uh, Even if we have seen a little bit of a backlash on the vegan side lately, I think it's
Mhm.
in the long run we are going in the right direction.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Um, would you like to share something that has been in particularly impactful for you as an activist during all these years that has maybe stuck with you or something you would like to share?
I think there's a couple of things. One I mentioned to you earlier was spending some time with the cows at the slaughterhouse. It's been very difficult to do that lately, but there have been times where we get to spend, 15, 20 minutes outside of a truck before they enter the slaughterhouse. And one that comes to mind is a cow that I got to spend, a lot of time with before he went in, and he was mooing and mooing. He was so scared, his eyes were watering and he was drooling and just very, very fearful. And I had just arrived there at that time. And when I leave my house, like I would say goodbye to my dog and talk to him, and he would listen to me and I tell him, what a handsome boy he is and I'll be back soon. And just the way he looks at me, and he really listens. And so I started talking to this cow this way too, telling him what a handsome boy he was and and he stopped mooing and he put his head down and he looked right into my eyes, just like my dog does. And it was so hard. I actually have a video of this and I just kept speaking to him and he just completely stopped crying and looking into my eyes and listening to me. And it was very hard because I got to communicate with him, but I also had to let him go. I couldn't save him. It was very hard. And but it just shows, like as a nation of dog lovers, we love our dogs. Our dogs are more than, pets to us. They are family. And you can, I saw from this experience, how much the cow is like my dog, in so many ways. I can communicate with them and they listen. And yeah, so that was very difficult. And it will stick with me forever. I actually have some videos of that cow that I still look at sometimes. Um, and probably another one is when I go to the livestock auctions, and that is also very difficult. Um, Watching the mother cows, their their udders are absolutely full of milk, and they're in pain from being so engorged and they're dripping. And next to them in the next pens are newborn calves that still have their umbilical cord attached and they're crying and crying and crying for their mothers, which they'll never see. And they are taken into the auction ring, that there's men who are yelling at them, kicking them, hitting them with sticks, and um, it's we've spoken about this before, Anne, but as a mother, it's really difficult to see this happening, the separation of the mother and babies forever, and sold like they are just inanimate objects. Um, and yeah, and especially the newborn calves who can barely walk, and yet they're being pushed into the auction ring and sold, for the highest bidder. So it's very, very difficult to see that.
Oh, I can imagine. And I mean, it's like so horrific. So it's beyond imagination, I think, for most
It
people
is. It
who doesn't
is.
know about the darker side of the dairy industry and how this
Absolutely.
hidden cruelty that is so normalized. How do you think? from your experience that we have been able to normalize this horrific cruelty that we never would get away with when it comes to dogs, for instance? I mean, this is just horrendous what we are doing to these kind, intelligent, poor animals. I mean, I say poor, I mean because we are treating them so bad, but these kind, intelligent animals, I mean, these sentient, gentle beings, how come we have come this far from compassion when it comes to this special,
Well,
I mean, cows, for instance?
yeah, with the cows. Well, I think it was a very gradual evolution, to get to this point. Um, and once it started getting, so big and so bad, the industry became so financially powerful that they decided to hide it from us. So now it is so hidden that people like it, and it's so bad that people don't even believe it when you tell them. Like it just seems crazy that, that we could even allow this to happen. So, and that was one of the things that I learned, or I found about when I turned vegan was that it was just so bad. Like, how could this be so bad and be allowed and nobody knows or cares? So yeah, I think it was, the a gradual process that this happened, and then being hidden by the industries themselves, and and then they create these laws. I was actually part of a lawsuit to the province of Ontario because they created this Bill 156 so that the industry could hide
Yeah.
these what they're doing to the animals even more from the public. So myself and a journalist and the law firm Animal Justice, we actually sued the province of Ontario and we won. But
Wow.
yeah, we did, we won. But
Wow.
then the province turned around and what's the word? Anyways, they're sorry, I'm at a loss for the word now. They're fighting it. They're fighting against it anyways. So we had to go back into court and go against three judges. And now we're waiting, for the answer, whether they're going to allow this bill to go through or continue to ban it. So it's been months and months. We haven't heard back from them yet, so we're still waiting. But it just goes to show like the industry has so much power that they can actually get, governments to go on their side to hide what they're doing to animals from the public, from the consumers who are paying for it. It's just
Exactly.
absurd, you know?
And they have power as long as consumers are buying their narrative. And this is the thing that we are sitting here to. I mean, we want to change that narrative. And I think it is about a consumer change in the long run. It needs to be, because it's the power needs to come from underneath and we need to change this. And I think more and more people need to realize what horrors are involved in animal agriculture all over the world, and there is
Yes,
no
yes,
safe zones. I mean, dairy is built upon a normalized violence that is hard to comprehend, I think.
yes.
So I think it's all about also educating ourselves, and I mean, inspiring people to do their own research, don't you think, as well? Mm,
Definitely. And nowadays, I mean, there's no excuse. You can go out, go on your computer and in seconds find answers to everything. So,
exactly.
when I was doing had the animal rights club in high school, like we didn't have social media and Google and all that stuff. So there was no way for us to get that information out,
Mm,
to the world. So we just kind of just it just kind of collapsed. But now people have so much information,
yeah,
it's just so easy to find that information, but we need to also put that information out into the world for them to find too, right? So
exactly.
yeah.
And also something that is so important to emphasize is that milk doesn't come from cows, it comes from mothers. And this is still something many people don't seem to really think about. Still, it's like we are so used to seeing this whitewashed, um, sort of wholesome image of the dairy industry and how healthy it is, and cows are happy on green fields and everything. And this is also something that when you realize the horrors and the separation and all the cruelty involved, and how the sacred bond between mother and baby is destroyed at birth, it's something so horrific as a mother to to understand, I think, and for many mothers. Mm.
Yes, I agree. And I also think too, like people or consumers of dairy don't consider milk, cow's milk to be breast milk. So whenever I'm talking about cow's milk, I always say breast milk because they're always like, "What? Breast milk? What are you talking about?" Right? They think like cows are these magic machines that make this white liquid, for us to drink. But
Exactly.
when yeah, and they'll say, "Oh, like cows don't have breasts; they have udders." And I say, "But it doesn't matter what we call them. It's the same thing. It's a mammary gland, secretion made to nourish our newborn babies." And they're like, "Oh, I'd never thought about it as breast milk. That's really creepy." So I think we need to unwhitewash what the dairy industry is doing, has done, to make us believe that it's this magical drink that cows make for us when it's not. It's just simply, a mother's breast milk meant to nourish her newborn baby.
Mm.
And, we're stealing her baby away in order to take it. It's really awful.
Yeah. Do you think more and more people are realizing this? I mean, we know more and more people are realizing this in one way, but on a global scale, do you think this is something that is, yeah, what do you think about the path forward when it comes to dismantle the dairy industry?
I think it is happening, and you can, see in the news that the dairy industry farmers are starting to really suffer. But unfortunately, I don't want to have too much pity for them, but at the same time, the government needs to give them subsidies to help them transition to something else. That they invest so much money into these farms and stuff, and so they're like clinging to it with their last with their last breath, because they don't have a choice. But if we could help them somehow to transition to a different industry, to something to like there's a place in the US where a chicken farmer recently transitioned to a mushroom, growing facility. So if we could help them to do things like this, it's gonna help this happen much quicker. They're not going to be grasping at trying to save the dairy industry. They would just transition to something else because in the long run, they just want to make money, right? So I don't think they really care that much about the product
Yeah.
itself.
Exactly. And I mean, we can see that that would benefit our earth, that would benefit our climate, that would actually benefit our economy in the long run, because so much subsidies are in the dairy industry as well, and in animal agriculture. So I think it would really be a win-win for everyone if more and more would transition into more plant-based options or other kind of options. And I mean, there are like transformation in Switzerland, for instance, and others
Yes,
in the US and in the UK. And we see these examples, and also in the film Milked about the
yes,
dairy industry in New Zealand, we saw several examples of farmers there as well. So there are a lot of hope, and I think they are really showing us the way ahead and how it needs to be, because this cannot continue. This is destroying not
yeah,
only from an ethical perspective, but this is destroying our earth, our waters, our planet. And
exactly. Whatever we do, to others, in the long run, we do to ourselves. So
exactly, this is
yeah,
destroying us as humans as well. I mean,
yes.
treating others this way, it's not healthy.
It's not. And it
So
comes back and it is coming back on us, and we need to change that.
yeah, definitely. It has been a pleasure meeting you. Thank you so much, Louise.
Thank
It's
you,
so nice to
Anne.
meet you. Always inspiring. And thank you
I
for
love
your
seeing you.
amazing work for the animals. It's just wonderful. And
Thank you,
the
Anne.
stories you were telling with that cow in you were comforting for 20 minutes is just so powerful. And yeah, it really, you have told me that story before and it really stuck with me. And thank you for sharing it
Thank you, Anne. Thank you for listening and being so compassionate.
again. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Vegan Grandmother's launch of the International Calf and Cow Mother's Day 2026, an event held in honor of the sacred bond between mothers and babies of all species. You can participate by sharing your art and recipes or by hosting an event. To submit and for more details, go to calfandcow.org.